Tonight, I'll take you through 3 chilling true stories. Stories of ordinary people who stepped into the unexpected. A lonely cabin in the woods, a late-night phone call that should never have been answered, and a hospital where shadows smile back at you. These are not legends. They are not campfire tales. They are real experiences that left scars and unanswered questions. So turn off the lights. Make sure you're alone. And let's begin. Story 1: The Cabin. In 2023, I ended up renting a cabin for a few months because I was going through conflicts with my father and needed to move out. The original owner of the place had some personal problems and had to leave. I'll just call on the landlord to make things easier. The cabin was just for me, and I paid the rent every month, which was perfect for my complicated, temporary situation. The cabin had 2 floors, a small kitchen, a decent-sized living room, and a bedroom upstairs that you reached by climbing a little staircase. To get into the upstairs room, there was one of those hatch-like doors you had to push open. I had been living there for about a month, and I had already paid for the second month, so I was pretty settled in. The cabin was at the end of a dirt road with a few other small houses nearby. One of them seemed abandoned. I never saw a car parked or a light on. The others had people living in them, but I never met any of the neighbors. I worked 12-hour shifts, and by the time I got home, I was so exhausted that I'd just crash into bed and watch TV until I fell asleep. One night, after having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a protein shake for dinner, I went straight to bed. I always closed the hatch door to the upstairs room at night because leaving it open made me feel exposed and vulnerable. There wasn't even a lock, which made it worse. The cabin was built for one person or maybe a couple. I was lying in bed watching TV when I suddenly heard a voice downstairs say, "Who's there?" For a moment, my heart stopped. I quickly sat up. The voice sounded like it came from inside the house, but maybe it was outside. I grabbed the remote and shut off the TV, then crept over to the small round window above my bed. It was too dark to see anything. So I called out, "Who's there?" The silence that followed was terrifying. I opened the hatch door and peeked toward the stairs. I even called out for my dad, thinking maybe he had come over, but there was no reply. I went downstairs, terrified, and turned on the lights. Nothing. I checked the front windows. No one. I convinced myself it was nothing, turned the lights off, and went back upstairs, shutting the hatch again. I turned the TV back on to calm myself down. Less than 5 minutes later, there were loud knocks on the hatch door from below. They sounded angry, deliberate. That confirmed it. Someone was inside the house. Frozen, I left the TV on and didn't move a muscle. The thought that whoever was downstairs could easily open the hatch door with no lock made my chest tighten. After several long minutes, I tried to reach for my phone, but it wasn't on my nightstand. Maybe I'd left it downstairs. Terrified, I opened the hatch door again and looked down the staircase. The flickering light of the TV cast just enough glow to see part of the living room. I tiptoed down the stairs in silence, but instead of switching on a light, I bolted barefoot through the back door straight to the nearest house with its lights on. I pounded on the door until I noticed a man staring at me from the window beside it. He just stood there, watching me. I shouted through the glass, telling him someone had broken into my cabin and I needed a phone to call the police. He definitely heard me, but he just stared. No reaction. Uneasy, I stepped back. Something about him terrified me, and I couldn't shake the thought, what if he was involved? I ran back to my cabin, slipped in through the back door, and locked it. I turned on every light in the house, searching desperately for the intruder and my phone. Eventually, I found my phone in the car. I had been too tired earlier and left it there. When I went back inside and climbed the stairs, I froze. Someone was sitting on my bed, watching the TV. A man. I screamed. He turned his head slowly toward me, but before I could see his face clearly, I bolted down the stairs and out the door with my phone in hand. I locked myself in the car and called 911. While I was on the phone with the operator, I saw someone walking across the yard toward the woods. When the police arrived, I explained everything. They searched the house but found nothing. One officer asked me if I had somewhere else to stay for the night. I swallowed my pride and went back to my father's house. The next day, I returned to pack up my things. Thankfully, the landlord agreed to refund part of my rent, but when he asked what the intruder looked like, he didn't ask any further questions. That felt strange. The silent neighbor who only stared, the landlord's sudden departure, and someone breaking into the cabin, maybe it was all connected. Or maybe I was just imagining things. The phone calls. My wife Anna and I are ordinary people living in a quiet neighborhood. We follow the routine: work, home, sleep, repeat. But one night, something happened that still unsettles us. It was a normal day. After work, we went out to dinner, then came home. By 10 p.m. we were in bed, TV on. Around 11, just as we were about to turn the lights out, the phone rang. Anna told me not to answer, that nothing good comes from late-night calls. But I felt like it might be important. Before I could pick up, the ringing stopped. Our landline was old, so once a call ended, the caller ID disappeared. Minutes later, the phone rang again, unknown number. We found it strange, but I still didn't answer. Then it rang a third time. I picked up, and it was our neighbor Noah. He asked, in a low, uneasy voice, "Are you the man standing in front of your house?" Confused, I said, "What are you talking about?" He told me to go outside and then abruptly hung up. I told Anna, and she immediately said, "Don't go outside." I agreed, but I decided to peek through the curtains. Nobody was there. I even stepped outside, still no one. Irritated, I figured Noah was playing a prank, though it didn't fit his personality at all. Back upstairs, I called Noah to ask what the hell that was about, but the call went straight to voicemail. I left him a message. Minutes later, the phone rang again. Another unknown number. This time, it was Noah's voice again. "Leave. There's someone standing in front of your house." But his voice was slower, calmer, unnatural. Then the line went dead. My heart pounded. I looked again, and this time, someone really was standing at the end of our walkway. A hood over their face, completely still, just watching. I shouted, "Can I help you?" No response. I threatened to call the police. At that moment, the phone rang again. Caller ID, Noah's number. I answered, ready to explode, but his voice was normal, casual. "Hey, I just got your message." "What was that about?" I froze. I told him he had already called me twice. He swore he hadn't. He even put his wife on the line to confirm he'd been home all night. Anna listened too, equally horrified. By the time I checked outside again, the hooded man was gone. To this day, we don't know if it was a prank, a coincidence, or something far darker. But that night, the thought of answering a late-night phone call changed forever. Story 3: The Hospital. I worked as a nurse in several hospitals before settling into my current one. Years ago, I worked in a geriatric hospital about 30 minutes from my home. That place changed me. I was assigned to the Alzheimer's ward. Most patients were quiet, drifting in their own minds. But one woman, Lena, was different. Every time I entered her room, she whispered about voices she heard and a man in black standing in the corner. Her roommate had already asked that the curtains be drawn, just to block Lena's frightened stares. That night, Lena was restless, calling for me again and again. I held her hands, calmed her, reminded her she wasn't alone. She would relax for a while, but soon call me back. Hours passed. At one point, while restocking supplies in the laundry room, I felt it, a hand pressing down on my shoulder. I spun around, terrified. No one. But I knew what I felt. Then, when I turned toward the door, I froze. A man dressed in black was standing outside the glass window, smiling at me. I screamed so loudly it woke the entire ward. A fellow nurse rushed in, but by then, the man was gone. We searched every room. Nothing. When I entered Lena's room again, she was awake, trembling. She whispered, "He's coming. He's smiling." I asked how she knew he was smiling. She looked at me, her face suddenly sharp and serious. "How do you know?" My blood ran cold. That night, I begged to be transferred. The next day, I quit. I was never diagnosed with hallucinations, never had visions like that before or after. But the feeling of that hand on my shoulder, the exact figure Lena described, remains burned into me. Some things in that hospital defied explanation. And I hope I never see that man in black again. And so, these stories come to an end. But remember, the shadows don't fade when the screen goes dark. They linger, waiting, watching. If you want more true terrifying stories, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notifications, so you won't miss the next time the darkness calls. Until then, sleep well, if you can.